he gives us authority.
Yeah.
Starting at verse 16, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. That authority has been conferred to us. And I
Mhm.
would be remiss if I didn't mention that one of the things that said that Jesus returned in power and authority was right after that temptation. He's vouched for by the Father, by the Holy Spirit. He's vouched for at the baptism of John. He has to go into a trial period of temptation, self denial, and then temptation to do it the easy way. I mean, every one of those things that the devil's trying to tempt him to is do it the easy way. But then he returns in this power and he demonstrates this power. He walks in this power, and then he conveys this power. He confers this power to his disciples. And if we're his disciple, we see in Matthew 28 and we see in Acts 2 that power, that dunamis, the power of the Holy Spirit and the authority to do kingdom work in his name is conferred upon us
Mhm.
as believers. Matter of fact, the first Gentile that is recorded as believing is a centurion. And what happens? Peter's Peter has the vision, which we covered not too long ago,
Yeah, we covered that.
but he goes to Cornelius's house, and as he's preaching, they get baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
So there's that spiritual power, boom, right on a centurion. And it was a centurion that recognized that Jesus was operating in authority. He recognized that authority. When we were working together and faithfully attending church, the Lord was kind of weaning us off of the church doctrine Kool-Aid, so to speak. One of the things that we got to talking about, and we were also discussing at this time with a lot of pastoral staff, with a lot of people with titles of bishops and apostles and this and that, and prophets and this and that, wanting to throw titles on us, which we didn't. We never did deny what our calling was, but we didn't want the titles
No,
because you could just do the work. And
it just felt icky.
it did. Well, I'll tell you how it felt. It felt premature
Mhm.
and it felt like there were always strings attached to the compliment.
Right.
So that's going on at the same time, but we would discuss at work. The pastor said this in the sermon, said the church is supposed to be doing this because it's doing this and doing this. But as we got into the word for ourselves, we started to recognize that when it came to doing kingdom work, stuff lined up a hell of a lot more with you and I are both Army guys. It lined up with being in the military.
Mhm. It does. It lines up a lot more. And you kind of gotta be careful too, because it can be very easy to fall into this vertical chain of command structure, which
Mm-hmm.
is what we have in the military, and we see it in the church too. But there is a spiritual chain of command as far as kingdom goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but here on earth, when it comes to service, when it comes to ministry, there's not necessarily a vertical chain of command. Um, there's more of a um, horizontal or a lateral plane of service
Mm-hmm.
where everyone is on the same plane and serving everyone equally. Um, that was that was a difficult adjustment for me because for me, it was always easy to see things in a vertical chain of command style. You have a squad leader, platoon leader, company commander, battalion commander, so on and so forth. Here in the kingdom, when it comes to us as humans in ministry, it's almost inverted. Maybe it is. It's inverted, where the greatest will become the least, and the least will become greatest. Nonetheless, that chain of command is still there. I remember when I first got promoted to sergeant when I was in the Army, as the 82nd Airborne Division, got promoted to sergeant, and I was so thankful that they didn't move me out of the company into a different company.
Mm.
I was able to stay there where I was, and I hadn't been a buck sergeant very long, and I had a detail. It was a mowing detail. I had a couple privates. I was in charge of some of the extra duty folks who had gotten in trouble and whatnot, and just supervising them. And they were doing one of the Army's worst details that we can do: area beautification, edging those edging those sidewalks with them e-tools, man,
Mm-hmm.
out there edging them sidewalks. And so I had the idea of leadership by example. So I was down there with an E2 edging the sidewalks with them. And Battalion Sergeant Major came through, and he come walking by, and he stopped, and he goes, "Who's in charge here?" I stood up. I was like, "Oh shit, that's me, Sergeant Major." I didn't see him because, told him who I was. He pulled me off the side, and he goes, "Why are you down there doing that?" I was like, "Well, leadership by example. Troops are going to they'll do better when they see me doing what they're required to do." He goes, "Bullshit." He goes, "I see what you're saying, but how can you know that they're actually doing what they're supposed to do if you're not
Mm-hmm.
supervising? Your job is to supervise. You made that rank, you earned that rank because you already did what they're doing. Now you stand back and you supervise." And that was a hard pill to swallow, but it made sense once he explained it to me. I see some of that in the kingdom sometimes, where it can be very difficult to take upon yourself or assume that role of authority and exercise that authority. What was happening to me at that time on that detail is I wasn't recognizing the authority that I had been given. I was still
Mm.
thinking that I had authority over, the authority was being held over me, but the authority hadn't. The authority was being given to me. So we got to be careful here in God's kingdom, understanding that all authority, Jesus' authority, has been uh, conferred to us. It can be very easy to forget that we have that authority and to
Mm.
exercise that authority. And in doing so, we have a tendency to keep doing things and trying to work our way out of things, work out our own problems, and do these things when really we need to stand back, exercise that authority, and let the Holy Spirit do it for us.